This is a screencast for combining like terms with negative coefficients and distribution. For this lesson, our learning target is that you will be able to combine like terms after distributing with a negative coefficient when we're done with this lesson. Where this lesson appears in our course is you should be comfortable with combining like terms with negative coefficients before we start adding distribution to that. And then we are going to use these skills when we're looking at equivalent expressions and then solving equations. So let's take a look at our first example, 2k minus 4, and then in parentheses 3k minus 5. As a review of our order of operations, we are going to look for what's inside the parentheses first, and since these are not like terms, they cannot be combined. Then, because there's no symbol between the 4 and the parentheses, this implies a multiplication. And then we have the 2k minus 4, and that's a subtraction. So in looking at our order of operations, after looking at parentheses, there's nothing to do. I need to perform that multiplication. And we're going to do that using the distributive property. So something that can be a little confusing is this subtraction. And something that I do, especially when I'm first starting to learn, is I will change that subtraction to add the opposite. And that really does help keep things a little bit more clear, a little bit more specific. And that's what I want to do, because really what I am going to be doing is taking that negative 4 and distributing the negative 4. So the 2k plus stays as it is. I'm going to take that negative 4 and distribute it to the 3k. And I'm going to take that negative 4, because the operation up here is a subtraction, I bring that subtraction down. That's just one of our rules of distribution. And then I'm going to take that negative 4 and distribute it to the 5. So we need to simplify even further. So I'm going to go through and do my multiplications. So we have the 2k plus negative 4 times 3k, that's negative 12k. And then we are going to subtract that negative 20. This is not how we would usually write things. And if you guys are actually doing the math on your own, I wouldn't expect to see all of these steps. As you get more comfortable with it, you're going to notice that you can skip some steps. So something that I might expect you to write down would be 2k minus 12 plus 20, because when you're adding a negative, that's subtraction. And when you're subtracting a negative, that's addition. So now that we have everything pretty much simplified and cleared up, I'm going to take a look at, for like terms, I have the 2k minus 12k, and that would be negative 10k. So our final answer for this example is negative 10k plus 20. Okay, let's take a look at another example, which would be 5 minus, inside parentheses, negative 8 minus x. So this is can be a little bit confusing because there's nothing to simplify inside the parentheses, and subtracting what's inside the parentheses can be confusing. So what I sometimes like to do is write that missing coefficient, write that invisible 1, because really there is a 1 there. There's one of these negative 8 minus x's, so I'm indicating that there's just one of them. Then I'm going to follow what I just did in the last example. I'm going to change this subtraction to add the opposite. So 5 plus negative 1 times this quantity. I need to make sure that I'm going to do the multiplication before I do any addition or subtraction. So the 5 plus kind of stays where it is, and then I'm going to take that negative 1 and distribute it to the negative 8. And I'm going to take that negative 1, first I'm going to carry that negative down, that minus sign. So that goes there. And then I'm going to distribute the negative 1 to the x. Next step is to perform all of my multiplications. So a negative times a negative is positive, and then -1 times positive would be negative. Again, I'm going to clean stuff up. What this really is just 5 plus 8, and then minus a negative is just plus. So 5 plus 8 plus x, and we get 13 plus x as our final answer. So these were two examples of how we would combine like terms after distributing with a negative coefficient.